I'm a professor of chemistry. So actually, going by one of the panel members in the previous presentation, I'd be far more comfortable talking about enthalpy and entropy. But I think employee experience is universal, and therefore I think there is something in it for all of us. And I'm here also as part of my employee experience, out of my zone of comfort, because I am very happy within the confines of an academic campus, and sitting here in HR conference is not something that I do every day. That's a little bit about the institution that I represent. We are an institution of eminence, as an deemed to be university, a little close to 60 years of existence, multiple campuses spread over the country and outside, including a campus in Dubai, and also spread outside of its campuses through the work integrated learning programs. About 18,000 students on our campuses, another 35,000 outside, 1,000 odd faculty members, another 1,000 which are adjunct, a total of about 150,000 alumni, more than 2/3 of them from industry, and some other statistics which I will not go through. That's just an introduction to the institution. And I'm here specifically as part of, this box on the left which says work integrated learning programs, which is a suite of programs that we conduct and we have been doing for the last 45 years or so for working professionals in industry. So what I'm going to say today is focused on a very small part, the last bullet item of the last slide of Ms. Gurjar's presentation, and which is basically on invest in your employees, and in particular on employee learning and development or employee advancement in life. So, being a professor, I could not but bring in a couple of formal definitions or statements about employee experience. So what it is the intentional design and engineering. So there is an intent, you want to create a wholesome employee experience. There is an attempt to engineer, which means you refine, you create a design, you build, you refine, and redo it till you have as close to perfected it as possible, of a high value integrated and end-to-end experience. And I hope that sort of summarizes the spirit of what was said by many of my speakers who preceded me. And what it is also an employee's holistic perceptions of the relationship with his/her employing organization, derived from all the encounters at touch points along the employee's journey. One of the things that we are aware of is that experience is considerably valued, in fact far more so perhaps at a certain point or beyond a certain point than material objects or possessions. And there is a study which has pointed out to a clear positive correlation between the quality of employee experience and the financial performance of organizations. And so employee experience also relates to the success of the company. So this is a representation of what constitutes employee experience, and we have sort of picturized it as consisting of 3 elements. One is the community, which of course is the community in the organization plus outside. The second is the culture in the organization. And the third is the content of the work that the person does, and all that is peripheral but important to the work that the person does. And as an educational institution, we really have not very much to do with community and culture in organizations outside of ourselves, but we do believe that we have a role in defining and refining what constitutes the content of work. And today, what are the factors which impact or influence the content of work the most? The number one is, of course, rapidly transforming technologies. Number two, perhaps changing world orders, geopolitical events, and impacts such as those from the pandemic that we've all been through recently. And what are the core skills that have to be learned by employees or by all of us in doing our roles and doing them effectively? The number one is problem solving, and there are these others that we have listed from the Global Skills Gap Report US 2018, all of which of course contribute to problem solving: adaptability, analytical skills, technical competence, of course, and so on. So that's the piece that we are going to focus on in the few slides that remain, and that's what I will be talking about. So much of the lecture is built around this one slide, which is on what we have named the 4-quadrant matrix. The boxes on the left and the axes tell you what it is. So on the vertical, we have classified problems. Problems as well-defined and ill-defined. A well-defined problem is one which is stated and stated clearly. There are clearly defined steps to go about solving such problems, and there are very clearly defined outcomes. Whereas an ill-defined problem is one where the definition of the problem itself is ambiguous. There are no necessarily defined steps to solving the problem, and the goalposts keep moving. Right? And of course, that is at the higher end of the value chain than well-defined problems. And similarly, on the other axis, we have the classification of problems in terms of the solutions. So the solutions are well known or the solutions are not well known. So if you look at the red box at the bottom left corner, it's a box where you have well-defined problems and the solutions are known. So it's somewhere at the lower end of the spectrum of customer experience and what the customer needs, and it's met typically by, let's say, a call center or a very, very rudimentary set of requirements expected from the employees there. It's at the bottom of the value chain. It's procedural knowledge. There are well-defined steps 1, 2, 3 that you follow, and you either solve the problem or you then pass it on to the next level. On the right-hand side at the bottom, we have problems which are well-defined, but where you still have to do some troubleshooting before you identify the exact nature of the problem, and where you then have to devise a solution to it. So it's more at the skills level. It's sort of a technical support. There is a higher level of customer experience. It's a customer facing segment, but where there is a slightly higher level of customer experience that's involved. It's somewhere in the middle, lower half of the value chain, but towards the middle. Technical skills are involved, and it's taught by learning through doing. The blue box there on the left, the light blue, is the set of problems which are ill-defined, but where the solutions are known, and they are known typically from the experiences of others. So there are cases and case studies which one may look at and therefore derive solutions through a trial and error process for one's own situation. These are, of course, areas which are expert in terms of the support that is required, somewhat higher up in the customer experience chain, higher in the value chain, requiring certain amounts of techno as well as managerial skills. Right? And the box that's perhaps most important for many of us here, along with the light blue one, but perhaps even more so, is the dark blue one on the right-hand side, where the problems are both ill-defined and the solutions are not standardized, not very well known. And here is where education, that too education which is born out of a mode of inquiry, is very important. It addresses very high customer experience needs, although it's not a directly customer facing segment. It's typically niche, and it's best addressed by integrating theory with practice. There is an element of research. I don't mean academic research, but there's an element of research involved. And there is a large role for simulated experimentation here. And now, why am I talking about all of this? Let me also bring that into context. The motto of the institution that I come from is Jnanam Paramam Balam. Right? Knowledge is power supreme. And knowledge really empowers. And what is that empowerment that we are talking about? That empowerment that we are talking about is the ability to do what one does and go beyond what one is expected to do and do it well. And that's what was referred to by the first speaker. And so I think the key to, or one of the most important keys to enhancing employee experience is empowering employees with the ability to perform above their current levels and be able to take on challenges at the workplace which go beyond merely what is required of them day in and day out. And that's the realm of continuous education. And continuous education typically is addressed towards problem solving. And so that's the element that we wish to address, problem solving in the organization. And we believe that is best met by the model of education that we have developed, which is to integrate education into the workplace, so that what you do at work turns out to be the stimulant for what you learn at your workplace but outside of your formal working hours. And then what you do is to try and integrate the two together. The result being at the individual level an opportunity to move up in one's career, and at the organizational level for an opportunity for individuals to participate in solving important problems that the organization faces. And in all of this, experiential learning, which I will define and say a little bit about in the next slide, plays an important role. So, as I just said, one of the key outcomes of continuing education, which I believe is an important element of good employee experience in any organization, is problem solving. And theories which deal with learning and instructional design prescribe experiential learning as one of the preferred approaches to building problem solving skills, which ultimately are what you really want to do in the organization. Now, what is experiential learning? Mere experience by itself and what you undergo as part of that experience does not constitute experiential learning. The learning process actually happens and gets complete when you have an opportunity to reflect upon what you have done, right? So you do something, and then you think about what you have done, you discuss what you have done, you place it in a context, and then the process of experiential learning is complete. And so what one should do is to enable an opportunity for the employee to not just experience but also reflect, which means create a structured, well-directed effort where an employee has an opportunity to reflect upon what he or she is doing, and therefore is able to bring an element of knowledge into it that is composed out of, or that arises out of this reflection following the practice itself. And that's what is experiential learning. And experiential learning is best achieved through work-integrated learning, right? Now, an integration of theory with practice is something which almost all models of learning universally attempt to incorporate, but one which is not very easy to do and not very successfully done. The integration typically happens at a campus level by sending students off to industry, or from the experience that students have in a healthy campus outside of the classroom. Now, what we have tried to do is to build this model in an organization where there is an atmosphere of encouragement of continuous learning within the organization. Experiential learning can address the needs of all four quadrants of the matrix that or rather work-integrated learning can address the needs of all four quadrants of the matrix that I pointed out earlier. But I think the focus in higher education is on the top two, especially on the top right-hand corner. And what we have done is to use technology and exploit technology in a manner that it can scale, and it provides a flexible and affordable education without compromising the quality of learning. And so the message that we want to convey is to build experiential learning into the culture in the organization, irrespective of whether you actually enable a formal education program or not. And this can be done in multiple ways, and doing this will enhance employee experience and will therefore contribute to greater employee satisfaction and to greater productivity in the organization. Now, what we have done as part of our educational programs is to invest in simulated environments where experimentation can happen, or actually build physical systems which can be accessed remotely and where experience can be obtained, and created an educational system where individuals can actually solve organizational problems using the facilities that we provide, right? And today, several thousand people go through this process annually, and I believe that it offers one of the most scalable models of continuing education and upskilling of working professionals. Before I complete, this is just a picture of some of the laboratories that we have created. This is only a sampling. We have, and we are currently doing far more, especially in fairly advanced areas such as in automotive engineering, advanced driver assistance systems and so on. But these are some laboratories that we have. The center box there has some of the simulation tools that we use. We have built virtual labs where employees who are working professionals can, as part of their educational experience, employ these tools to actually address problems that they find at the workplace and help them to contribute to solving problems and therefore progress in their professions. We have remote laboratories, as I mentioned. Two of those are pictured there: fluid mechanics and machines, integrated automotive. There's a remote lab of distributed computing and infrastructure also that I have put a picture of there. And so this goes across sectors. So this is the impact that we've been able to create. And I am not suggesting that it's only in this way that you can create impact. I'm just saying continuous education, and in particular, creating an environment of experiential learning in an organization is an extremely important initiative in completing the employee experience as well as leading to the organization meeting its business goals. These are some numbers, and these are the sectors where we have successfully employed these, and you can see that it encompasses a fairly wide range of industry sectors. And so you can do it anywhere. And therefore, the message that I would like to leave with you is to please build a culture of continuous learning in your organization and ensure that every employee feels empowered, that he or she has the opportunity to be able to participate in solving organizational problems, utilizing the office or the workspace as the laboratory in which he or she will be able to experiment, carry out their thoughts, execute their thoughts, and attempt to grow in their professions and contribute to their organizations. Thank you. I am done with my presentation. There's a minute or so. So if there are any questions, I must tell you that I had actually intended to show a couple of videos, but then there was some technical hitch. So we have a stall outside. You can see some of those videos on simulated games, simulated experiments and so on, which will tell you a little bit more about it. If you have any questions, fine. Else, I'm available outside for discussion. Thank you.